Hi guys. Okay, I know that this week we're doing the digestive system, but I thought that maybe we'd just do a whole dissection and look at the parts including the dissection. And so the first thing, we've kind of pre-dissected a little bit, and the first thing was that the chest plate, the sternum, and some of the ribs were cut out so that we can remove that. And then under there you can see the heart, and on each side of the heart would be the lungs. And of course, this is a little baby piglet, so he didn't breathe, so they're not very full. Okay, right under the heart and the lungs, you'd have the diaphragm. And, okay, the diaphragm, I was just looking to see if we have any of that still, and I don't really see any, but that's okay. Okay, so we'd have the heart, the lungs, we'd have the diaphragm. I'm going to take out the heart and lungs for now. And then we have the liver. And of course the liver is the largest organ. It has 3 different lobes. And what resides right under the liver? That's right, the gallbladder. And so in this guy it's still pretty immature, but it's that little round sac-like thing right there would be the gallbladder. And just the different lobes of the liver. And then we have the intestines. We have the small intestines, we have the stomach, would be over here on the side, and in a pig, the large intestine doesn't go ascending, transverse, and descending like in a human. It actually is this dark green kind of coiled up little guy right here would be the pig's large intestine. But of course we have a small intestine, his stomach, and then if we kind of dissected this out, and if you can see right in the back, we have the kidneys. We have the one kidney here and the one kidney over there. And so now we'll actually take some of these apart. And so if you want to separate that right from there. Okay, so the first thing, we're going to take apart the heart and the lungs. And let me get a scalpel. And we're just going to dissect the heart apart and just see if we can see anything that looks interesting in it. So we're just separating the heart and the lungs right now. And I'm not being very finesse, but that's okay. Okay. So now we have the heart and the lungs separated. So there's your 2 lungs there. And how many lobes does each lung have? That's a good question. Which lobe has 3 lungs? That's right, the right lung. The left lung has only 2 lobes. So, and you can't really see them very separated. Oh, I guess you can, the 2 there, and the 1, 2, 3. So I guess you can see. Okay. And so now if we look at the heart, this is so immature it's hard to see the front from the back, but I think it's right here, so I'm going to try to dissect the heart in half and see if we can see any of the chambers in the heart. Okay. And you can see this guy was injected with red for the arterial system and blue for the venous, and so you can see more of the venous system here. But if we look at the back side of the heart now, then we can see when the deoxygenated blood comes in, what chamber does it come in? That's correct, the right atrium. What valve would be on the right side? The tricuspid valve. Then to the right ventricle. Then from the right ventricle, the deoxygenated blood is going to go out through the pulmonary artery, out to the lungs, pick up oxygen, come back in the pulmonary veins, and it's going to come in to the left side of the heart in the left atrium. And what valve is on the left side? Yep, the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. Then into the left ventricle, and then it's going to go out the pulmonary artery, out the top to the pulmonary artery. Okay, and so that's basically the heart. And then if we look at a kidney, and here again, you can cut that one right in half. Here again, they're pretty tiny, but we'll cut the kidney open in half and see if we can see any of the structures of the kidney. And we haven't really covered the urinary system yet, but we will be shortly, so maybe some of this will help. But anyway, okay. So if we look at the kidney, the outer border of the kidney is actually the cortex. It's like just like the brain, it's the outer border. And the functional units of the kidney are the nephrons. The nephron is what starts to filter the blood to make urine. And so most of the nephrons are in the cortex, this dark part out here. The whole center section is called the medulla, and that has structural parts also. And good, here's your other kidney, so maybe we'll look at some of these. So anyway, the parts of the nephron, most of the nephron is out here in the cortex, and when filtration starts, the blood comes in the renal artery, and it goes up through renal columns, and from the columns it's going to go into the first part of a nephron, and the first part of the nephron, it's the Bowman's capsule, and it has the glomerulus all curled up in that Bowman's capsule. And then the filtration, the filtered blood goes back out through the renal veins, but the filtration goes into the proximal convoluted tubule, then a loop of Henle, then the distal convoluted tubule, and then finally it's going to go out through the renal pyramid, and then into the renal pelvis in the medulla, and then out the renal, your ureter. Isn't that awful? I couldn't think of the ureter for a second. Okay, and so that's basically the kidney, and we'll be doing the urinary system maybe next. Okay, so then if we go back and we take out and look at the digestive really organs, and so here again on the side is the stomach, and you can see his stomach is a pretty good size. What lies right beside the stomach, right on the side of the stomach on the left-hand side? That's the spleen. And you can see in the pig and in the cat, the spleen actually looks, I think, like a tongue-like looking guy, but it lies right beside the stomach. And then if we look right kind of behind the stomach, I have to get the orientation correct again, then we might be able to see, I'm looking for the pancreas, and that lies right behind the stomach, and there's the pancreas right here, I believe. Yep, because it's kind of a globular looking organ, and I'm trying to get the tissue away, so I don't know if you can see all the little globules or folds, but that's part of the pancreas right there. Okay, and like I said, the large intestine here, the small intestines here. And one thing I like the students to do is, if you can, remember it's the mesentery that holds the all of the folds of the small intestine together. And you have a mesenteric artery too, and not too long ago I heard that somebody had an aneurysm in their mesenteric artery, and I was like, I never knew you could have one there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And one of the things I get the students to do, so I haven't done this in a long time, but if my assistant had a glove, you could help me. I want to unravel the intestine just to see, even though this is such a little guy, to see how long the intestine, small intestine actually is. I can't remember the length of a human, but yep, if you just hold that, thank you. And we're gonna just keep trying to unravel it, and oops, it pulled too hard, it breaks, huh? Okay, yep, and just hold this tension, yeah. And I know this is one part the students really like. Like I said, I've rarely ever done this because I let them have at it. But move your hand over that way a little, honey, so that, yeah, they can see. Okay, don't pull. Yeah, if the students are really good, they can unravel the whole thing without breaking and see just how long it really is. So you can see a lot of this is still curled up right there too. I'm not going to be too fussy though. And what are some of the digestive agents in the stomach and in your intestines that break down the food? That's a good thing we could talk about now while we're doing this. what does pepsin or pepsinogen breaks down into pepsin, and what does that digest? Yeah, you're right. That's going to digest protein. And amylase. What does amylase digest? Yep, amylase starts digesting carbohydrates, and you actually have some amylase in your saliva, and so carbohydrates start to be digested or broken down right in your mouth when you first eat them, for the good or the bad, right? So can't quite see. Now you see why the students like to unravel this guy. But I hope you're getting an idea. We could cut this of just how long, and I'm not really taking it apart real good either. But can you imagine if you did this on a human, how long this would be? It would be very, very long. Okay, well, there, getting sloppy. Okay, I want you guys to start to guess how many, this little piglet, how many feet even this little piglet's intestines would be if we could unravel them all and get all the folds taken apart. I don't know. I would say, Frank, what do you think? How long would you guess?
Close to 3.
3 feet?
Close, if you include large and small.
Yep. I would say maybe even a little longer. Who knows? I suppose the biology book might have it in there somewhere, huh? Okay, Frank, what have you learned in this whole exercise that you didn't already know?
Fetal pigs stink.
Uh-huh. Well, and we haven't even opened up, but I don't know that I want to go a whole lot further. We have some over here, but I'm afraid I'm going to cut into part of the large intestine. Actually, would you have a glove? Could you just grab that and pull? Yeah. Yep. Yep. I was just seeing if I could get it apart, but not really. I'm going to end up breaking it. Okay, so if we were to just wrap this back and forth, just so you can get an idea of, that's only about maybe 3/4 of the small intestine unraveled. So now you can get an idea of how much. Now, the other things I want you to remember, the main nutrients are absorbed in the small intestine. The large intestine, not only is it storage of byproducts or the feces, but that major job of the large intestine is reabsorption of water so that we keep the fluid balance in our body. So I'll be happy if you're comfortable with those two things. And the stomach. I guess we could also talk a little bit more about the stomach. We'll take off remember that was the gallbladder that lays right beside it. We'll take the gallbladder off the stomach. The parts of the stomach, when you come down the esophagus, the food tube, the very top of it is the cardia, then you have the body, and then the pylorus. So you have lower esophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter is the muscle that opens and closes to let food go from the esophagus into the stomach. Then at the end of the stomach, just before the small intestine, you have the pyloric sphincter. And the very first part, it goes from the stomach into the small intestine. The first part of the small intestine is the duodenum. The middle of the small intestine is the jejunum. And then finally the third part is the ileum, just before it goes into the large intestine. And the parts of the large intestine, which don't look the same on here, this guy, but the first part is right where the appendix attaches. I'm having a brain cramp. Starts with a C, the cecum. The cecum. So, and that's where the appendix is attached. And then you have the ascending, then you have the transverse colon, then the descending colon, and then you have, I always call it the S curve, the sigmoid, and then finally the rectum, and then you have the anus. And the anus is really just another sphincter muscle that lets the byproduct out. I've known a few sphincters in my life. How about you? Sorry. Okay, shouldn't carry on like that, huh? I can't think of any other parts of the digestive system, so there's nothing of interest in there, right? Can't really see the esophagus or any of that. Okay, we'll call this dissection good. Thank you guys for paying attention.